Hello, welcome to Meta Egg. You have found another meta Easter egg where we talk about the meta aspects of movies, and there's no better way to start talking about meta movies than to start with Star Wars. So today we are joined by my good friend Star Wars Santa. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Will. Thanks for scheduling this. I look forward to our discussion. Should be fun.
Right, you've come for the last 3 years. We've been talking about Bad Batch, so I kind of get a little sentimental having you here. I mean, this is a long running conversation.
Yeah,
I guess the
yeah.
first thing I got to ask you is, man, how does the finale, the end of the show wrapping up, how do you feel afterwards? Like just looking back, let's just start there.
Well, I overall for me, I feel satisfied. Like the story had a beginning, middle, and end, and then the ending itself that jumps forward to start a new chapter, a new story that we have to look forward to. So, the Bad Batch from season one through season three, episode 15, minus the last 2 minutes of the episode, is a full story. It was great. Ends with Omega and the music of the Shire playing in the background, and kind of leaning against her dad, taking a nap under the tree. Peaceful, serene, fantastic.
I still think it's the best Star Wars. I've been saying it for years. I feel like people are starting to come around to that, but damn it, I'm going to be the old guy on the lawn saying I said it first, man.
Well, it's Star Wars animation, I think, for more than a decade, has proved that in lieu of a movie, it is the best Star Wars. You can go back to the Clone Wars animated series, even go back to Tartarovsky, Clone Wars miniseries.
Oh yeah.
All of those have been widely accepted by the fandom as really good Star Wars. There's been a couple of misses along the way that not everybody's into, but I'll even say you take a series like Resistance that a lot of people did not like or did not watch, and there are nuggets in there that we've now seen used in, say, Andor, for example.
Oh
So
really?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
so
because the dude's dad or whatever. I
that's
believe.
right.
Well, what's the name I'm looking for?
Kaz, what's his last name? But he's the main character in Resistance, Kaz. He's a super annoying character in the show, very juvenile, like adolescent kind of kid. And but his dad ends up showing up in Andor, and there's a tie-in there. And where that ties in can be mined. There's a lot in there that can be used. So you take even a show like Resistance, and it has value to the overall Star Wars story. And then you get these really good shows uh, like the Bad Batch, top notch Star Wars. You'll get no argument from me. Like it's top tier Star Wars, and the amount of storytelling in there, character development, everything is just top tier.
It is. Do you know of? I forget what there. I think that there's a name for it, but it's basically a Frankenstein version of Episode 3. I think Revenge of the Sith, but added as like the last season of the Clone Wars and the first season of the Bad Batch mixed in chronological order, so one blends into the next. Have you seen that before? Do you know what I'm talking
No,
about?
I can understand what you're saying, but I've not seen it at all.
Oh, there's even a name for it. I forget what they call, but it's basically like, I don't know. I would say at least 4 hours, I want to say. But they hash it into where like certain scenes are happening at the same time, but it really shows like the painstaking like detail to the continuity. The Bad Batch, I mean, the one of the Bad Batch, Echo, you started at he's like one of the longest running characters. He's like at the very first season of Clone Wars, right?
Yeah.
Because all of that crew that he was in with, what was it, Fives, Heavy,
Mhm.
and you slowly watched all of them die off, and Echo was the last one that you thought was dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we see in Rebels, he's missing again. And so we see him show up in Bad Batch, and you're like, he's not dead. And at the end of Bad Batch, he's still alive. There was a lot of speculation because where did he go? Like,
There's a
in
pause, bro. There's like a very sentimental when he goes, when Echo is decked in the stormtrooper outfit right at the end of Bad Batch, and he looks over towards Wrecker. There's like a sentimental, they don't even say anything, I don't think. They just Echo turns, they make eye contact, and he just like turns and gets back on the plane. So it's ominous, man, because it makes me wonder. But okay, so the one of the theories that I don't know where it came from, but the whole Chopper base was used, and Chopper was a rebel. The Echo base from Hoth in Empire Strikes Back is speculated to be named after Echo. But do we know if Echo's alive at that time?
We don't know. And a lot of people were saying that just because the word's the same, but you know, echo is a common terminology.
Right. I know we've argued this before, but
Yeah.
I'm keeping my foot in that door because it corresponds to the whole Chopper base thing.
Oh, 100% could be. We don't know, but um when you get we don't even know by the time of Rebels if he's still alive. And we get that we get that time jump at the end of Bad Batch.
Right.
And we've been some discussion about when is that? So when we see Omega go to the ship and Hunter comes there and they say goodbye and she flies off, when is that?
It's got to
Uh,
be within what, 5 years of Yavin? It's got
it
to be.
is.
When does the
It's
rebel? Because it reminded me at the very beginning of like the hidden scenes of A New Hope. There's the one where Luke. It was supposed to be like the original opening scene of the movie, but it's basically when like Luke is talking to Biggs about joining the rebellion. Right? Do you
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like it's got to be around that time period, right?
Well, we don't know, and that's the thing. It could be anywhere from say 8 before to say Rogue One. It could be anywhere in there. We don't have a precise date.
Well, shit,
The
man. She could have died in Rogue One, technically. Like, we don't know that, but I'm talking about Omega. Because the main speculation, okay, so here's my theory, is that it is obvious that Omega is being built to be some sort of legacy character. They
Mhm.
have plans for Omega. There's
I think
certain like I feel like all the Bad Batches heads are on the chopping block, obviously. I'm thinking tech right now, but how morbid. Crosshair, I think, would be cool to see show up in. I mean, he's technically alive, right? Or do we not know? All we really see is Hunter and Omega at the end. Is that
yeah,
right?
but they kind of reference that that
The others are there.
the others are still there. It's just Hunter was onto her, right?
Who's your
Hunter
favorite?
of the bat. For me, it's Wrecker. Yeah, you've got him right there. Wrecker's my favorite. He's a gentle giant. He can certainly bring the force and the power when he needs to, but
He's
he's
be with muscles, bro.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So fantastic character, right? But I think Wrecker and Crosshair are still alive. There's a little allusion to them being alive, a little nod, like in the discussion the Hunter has with Omega there at the ship. It's like, say goodbye to them.
Okay. How? Okay. So, okay. I just had a brain. I gotta interrupt you because I had a brain fart. Let's see. I think Hera's in the first. Is Hera in Bad Batch more than once? I can't remember. Do we see her in two different ages or only one age?
Only one.
So they meet at the very. And how close in age are they when they meet?
Hera's just a tad bit older, not a lot.
I mean, how old is Omega when the series starts? She's like 8.
She's like around 10 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is so nerdy. I'm fine nerding out if you're okay nerding out. But we got to do the timeline. I'm trying to pinpoint like what time period. See, this goes back to my theory though, is I feel like Hera was put in the very beginning of the show on purpose. And it's basically because as soon as we know that Omega is going to join the rebellion as a pilot, we know she's going to meet Hera. And we know that she and Hera has a history. And I think that it's a classic Filoni Easter egg because he put like a younger version of another one of his characters, which is Fennec Shan, into the Bad Batch also as a younger version. And we also have like Hera now and Ahsoka as a live action character. We can see her at about that age, but I'm wondering how old Omega would be compared to her. They would basically be like the same age, right? So Omega should be, by the time of the rebellion, Omega should be the same age as Luke, maybe? Like, no, she should be.
No, she's older than Luke.
She's got to be at least. She's like 10 or 11. She's 11 years older than Luke, right? Is that right? Because Luke is born on basically Empire Day, right?
Right.
Okay. She's got to be in that wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit older than Ezra and everybody like that. And if we're going off of like the Ahsoka series, right?
Right. Well, I just from a rough guesstimate, the Ahsoka series would put Omega in her mid 40s, give or take a few years.
How old is Hera in the Ahsoka series?
Well, it'll be the same range, right? They're in the same range, with maybe a couple years between them, not a lot, right?
I think she goes to sleep, man. I think that this makes my point more clear because, okay, we know, okay, necromancer, right? Okay, so if we can go off and say that, oh, come on, man. Like, we know that necromancer is alive and well during Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
But it's closed at the end of Bad Batch. Bad Batch closes down necromancer and opens up the whole operation for the Death Star to be built.
Yeah, I mean, it's questionable whether necromancer isn't closed.
It's completely obliterated. All the data.
No. Well, so there's all kinds of questions. So necromancer comes up again later, right? They closed down the facility that is on Wayland, right? That doesn't mean that they shut down.
Tarkin transfers funding from necromancer over to the Death Star.
Not from necromancer, from Tantus.
Well, that's what he says. He says Project Necromancer. They're talking Tantus is necromancer because they say it at the end of Bad Batch. Come on, give me a present here, Santa.
Tarkin, I just rewatched it. Tarkin says, does he say take the funds from Necromancer to take the funds from this facility?
I think he says take it from Necromancer and move it up because he says the project names.
You might be
What is
right.
the project name? Stardust? Isn't that the name of? Because he specifically says take it from Necromancer, take all the funding from Project Necromancer and move it over to Project Stardust. And because if you're a nerd, you know what those two projects are, man. One is the project for Palpatine to show up and come back, and the other one is for the Death Star. But this is years before the Death Star. We still have years before the Death Star, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
by technically, Omega should be about 11 years older than Luke. By the time of Luke, Necromancer's already back and running. We know this because of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has the Ambered Jedi in the bottom, correct? We can assume that that's Necromancer because that's the continuation of Snoke. We've seen the little guys in the barrels. Give me a present here. I've been good all year, Santa.
Well, Necromancer isn't fully closed down.
I don't think you have no Necromancer without Omega. True or false?
False.
Bullshit. All bullshit. No, I don't think that you have a Force user who can move over the M counts with Omega. Meaning, for there to be a Senator Palpatine coming back and rise, for there to be continuity between those two things, then you have to have Omega being recaptured by the Empire.
No, I don't think so.
Before Obi-Wan. That's what I'm thinking. You can fight me on it, but that's where I'm staying. I'm saying that they get Omega, and I'm saying Omega's going in Amber before Obi-Wan. In fact, I'm going to go back and watch the tape and make sure she's not already down there.
You're clinging on with every last fiber of your being.
Bro, because it makes sense. It has made sense from the first episode. From the very first episode, when they say her name's Omega, you know she is the connecting link to Palps. You know it. It's logic.
The immediate connection is to Boba Fett.
Right.
Alpha and Omega.
Well, you realize that if she's Omega, he is Alpha. But we said that from the first episode, and people said, no, you're speculating. There's just doesn't make him her sister, blah, 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 blah. And we were right. Because it's logic.
Yes. Yes. Now, the one thing that it took a side turn on us is I kept wanting to see her go into the white proto armor, right?
Right, because that is also implied when you're talking about the history and the bloodline, and you're talking about Alpha and Omegas. You're also talking about Protos.
Yeah,
and if they are going, logically, if they have Omega being his sister, then we got to see her in armor.
I think so. I would love to, but she seems to have taken a career change, right?
Right.
She's chosen to be a pilot. So she didn't leave. I thought maybe she would go with Fennec Shand and learn some of Fennec's trade. A lot of people thought she was going to leave with Asajj Ventress and learn Force skills to hone her Force sensitivity, to grow it and train in it. But those are both wrong. She chose to be a pilot. Now, if she does have Force sensitivity, which I think has been proven false, I don't think that she does have Force sensitivity.
I think it's been proven false multiple times.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. So she is, if she has any kind of Force ability, it would be the same as Han Solo, right? Because there's some like... he's a great pilot, and he's trained as a pilot, the midichlorians in him, blah, 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 right? So I was like, okay, if she has any, it's to the same degree like Han Solo does. It's
There's
not that
nothing,
she's a
and I
force
think
feeder.
that they've proved that. They proved that. I think it was in season 2 during the pod race, because they set it up perfectly that she should have some relationship or some skill level like Anakin, and they chose to show her she took more after Tech's skill set than anything that was supernatural. And then
Absolutely.
again, when she's tested by Ventress, that's like the nail in the coffin, bro.
Yes.
That. That's not what
Yes.
she's meant for. She's meant to have some sort of, because she was the ultimate clone, the omega of them experimenting with clones at the times. The Kaminoans had figured it out. Now all the Kaminoans are dead, so you can't do it again. You have to have Omega.
Well, no. By the time you get to the uh Mandalorian, and you got Dr. Pershing, he's talking about using Kaminoan technology. Well, Kaminoan technology doesn't come from Omega. Omega has a different role in that. It's her blood is a carrier, right?
But I
Her
think
blood's a carrier, but she is
that's because she was made by. I'm gonna have to interject, because she was made by the Kaminoans. I don't think you can make another Omega to have
no.
a force without the Kaminoans, because they're completely obliterated at this point.
Well, are they though? Because Lama Su very well could be alive. We don't have any confirmation of his death. In fact, I thought he was killed early on, but we see him alive again. And I was like, wait, the dude's not dead. Then in the prison break, right, the cavalry has arrived. We never see him freed. So he's either still held within his cell wherever they were holding him, or he was in a different part of the facility somewhere else. We have no confirmation whatsoever that he was killed. The Lama Su's around. We still have a Kaminoan around. He's not a scientist. He's a politician. But as a Kaminoan, he's still going to have some ability to recall or some knowledge of the science as a whole. Certainly not to the degree Nala Se did, not to the degree that they need, which slows down Project Necromancer significantly.
Okay,
Right?
so who has the technology? Who has the skills? Who's left who even knows about Omega?
That knows about her? That's a good question. I mean, we know that Asajj knows quite a bit.
Yeah, she knows everything. She knows she has enough information to kind of deduce what's happening with Necromancer, because she had already dealt with. Didn't she have something to do with stealing the babies to begin with back in like the Clone Wars, or am I wrong in that? I remember back in the Clone Wars they were stealing Force babies.
Yeah.
But was she involved at that? I can't remember.
Well,
anyways, we're getting off point, because Rampart's. You think Rampart's dead? You think
he's in parts.
Ramparts and parts and pieces. Boom.
Yeah. For sure.
But he knew, and right before he died, he's let in on the secret too of what's going on.
Right. Nala Se told him the whole story. He knew the whole story. The other person, of course, would be Hemlock, but Hemlock he's gone.
Toast.
Yeah. Other than Hemlock and Rampart, of course, you had Nala Se. She knew she's dead.
Boom, boom.
Maybe Cad Bane would have enough pieces to put together. Like, he was capturing these Force sensitive children and bringing them there. He maybe have enough information to put the puzzle pieces together, but he doesn't have the piece of the puzzle that Omega fits into. Fennec Shand has pieces of the puzzle as well. And those things, PM says, Will, are you experimenting with AI and syncing? You did that before. I don't think you're doing it now.
Oh, yeah, actually, ew, there's a question. There's people in the chat group.
There are people in the chat. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure who is asking this PM. Will, are you still experimenting with AI and syncing? Yes, I have taught an AI how to sync. However, I have stopped most recently because I know it's just going to get better. I haven't bought a subscription to the big boys yet, where I can make my own bot is what I plan to do soon, to where you can just pop in whatever movie and it would tell you some information about it along the lines of Meta Eggs. But I was just editing all of the stuff that I got from the computer already. So I think the first video that I'll do will be on Jennifer Connelly, and it will be a long form. The problem is Santa, you know as well as I do, like there's different skill sets for different shows that you produce, whether they're just like an informative video or whether they're a live stream or whether they're like just shorts. So, and they all give you different viewing options and how much the algorithm pushes them out. And it's just like a whole lot different ball of wax when you're talking about a 15 to 30-minute video and all of the editing that goes into that.
yeah.
But,
So Phoenix Shand also has many pieces of the puzzle.
right.
Right?
And but she's also with Bulba, and you're surprised. There's a big why isn't Bulba aware yet? Again, because Omega's sleeping. She knows. Genoa? Is that how you say Genoa? How do you say her name?
Fee. I don't know her last name. Yeah.
Now this is another good theory here, though. She's voiced by Wanda Sykes.
Yep.
Who is a comedian that is pretty tight with Favreau. And she has been de-aged in the same way that Fennec Shand has been de-aged, right? Do you think we'll see Wanda Sykes in live action?
Oh, well, no.
Oof. You don't think so, huh? You don't think she's like the perfect age?
She could. She'd be really old for the Ahsoka series.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. Mandoverse.
Mandoverse.
We already have pirates drifting around Mandoverse.
Mandoverse is roughly 20 years after the epilogue scene of the Bad Batch. 30 years from when the cavalry arrived, roughly. Again, we don't have precise dates. We're guessing on a lot of it. It's just to put it in those things. So if you were to take Wanda Sykes, Fee's character at the cavalry arrives, how old would you say she is? 30?
Well, she could be 20s, bro. She's about the same age as Tech because she's flirty with Tech. So she's about the same age as the clones are or appear to be now, which would be what, 20, 30, 20s?
Yes,
Let's say
30.
that she's in her 20s. She would be 60 in Mandoverse, right? Maybe tops. She would be Wanda Sykes' age.
Well, 30, yeah, she'd be around 60. Yeah. Sabersmith asked, they did de-aging on Ming-Na. No, the character. So we know like Fennec Shand has been in the Mandoverse, right? She's in the Mandoverse. We see a younger Fennec Shand in animation in the Bad Batch. They didn't de-age the actress.
No, she's the age. But if you put those actresses, they're around the same age in present day, which would be Mandoverse. Like what Mandoverse would be, you wouldn't have to de-age Fennec Shand and you wouldn't have to de-age the actress Wanda Sykes if you had Fennec Shand and Fee interact, right?
Right. But if you were to put them in live action in the Bad Batch era, you would have to de-age the
Aged
actresses.
the living hell, the tarnation out of them, right?
Although I will say Ming Na is
She looks
looks
wonderful.
amazing for her age. Right?
Amazing.
Yeah. So anyhow, no, we
Hemlock's
see
good.
Omega in her 20s. That's roughly, so go all the way back. There's a theory that says in the Rebels season 3, there's an episode where you see Mon Mothma put out a call. And she's a holographic image, really large, that they put up, and then she puts out a call, says, "We need you, everybody. You hear this? Come. We need people to fight this evil." Right? And there's a speech around that. It's really good. So if Omega's replying to that call, it's possible. It's within the window of time that fits. If she's responding to that, that's roughly Rebels season 3. And then we know, okay, shortly after that comes Andor season 1. And then right after that, we go straight into Andor season 2, which is going to be the walk up until Rogue One, which leads us directly to Battle Yavin. So we're at the end of the Bad Batch. We're roughly maybe 5 years before, 4 years before, something like that, the Battle of Yavin.
Omega is going night-night. Omega is going sleepy pie. She's got to. She's got to. We have plenty of time for her to be put to sleep, say, before Yavin. She's asleep all through Yavin. She can still touch the beginning of the rebellion with what we could see her. We could maybe do, okay. I guess this goes into speculation on whether or not Omega is going to be in another series.
There you go. Forward. There you go. And you kind of mentioned it before, but Filoni set up kind of the backwards way, right? He put Fennec Shand in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. In the Mandalorian, he put her in there, and supposedly she was going to die. And Ming Na had this conversation with him that you can't kill me like that. Ain't right. And so he lets her survive into the Book of Boba Fett, and she's still alive. So then he backs up and puts her into the Bad Batch. Right. Now we've got Fennec Shand back in the Bad Batch. I think he's doing the other side of that with Omega, and she's in the Bad Batch. And now we're going to see her in Ahsoka season 2. Okay. What we'll tell you is,
but she's got to be 40 years old, and I don't like that. And I don't think that they have that intention. I think that they do not want an old Omega. I think that Omega's whole design is to take over as the live action Mandoverse timeline for Boba. And that doesn't mean they're going to get rid of Boba. They'll just have a more youthful icon that takes. Why just replace the icon with another aging icon? You don't want to do that. You want that proto armor. If you're going to do it, you do it proto armor. My only issue with the proto armor is that is a Mandalorian female. It's not a female helmet. It's a male helmet. Like the one we see in Sid's office is a male helmet.
Yeah.
But I'm perfect.
I think Din Djarin is the new Boba Fett.
Oh, I mean,
and then Omega is going to be, well, she's chosen her path as a pilot, so she's going to be one of the X-wing pilots, or she's going to be.
I think I think we're going to a series where she's going to be with Hera. I don't know what that's going to be, but there's going to be like pre-rebellion shit or some sort of rebellion shit.
And Saber Smith put maybe in Rogue Squadron. if that movie ever gets off the ground, and they keep saying that it is, but nobody believes them, right? Patty Jenkins ever gets that movie off the ground, then Omega is perfect age to be the character is perfect age to be in that movie. Otherwise, when we see her in Ahsoka season 2, and I'll say it, with that kind of confidence, if she's in her 20s, then she takes a nap. If she's in her 40s, you got to give it up, Will.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it really, the only reason I say that is because I think that they want the proto armor. Like when I first saw it and thought about who she was, what importance she would bear as far as cloning was concerned, the fact that they tied her to the beginning of the clones through Boba, or her relationship to Boba, I think it's a prime. I think they're stupid not to be using her for a legacy character that will carry forth a franchise, right? And I don't think, because of that, when I thought and gave that just a little bit of turning over in my head, I then wondered what Disney or mythology she would be akin to, right? Because we're basically talking about genetic memory. There's a little bit of like, there's something special in Omega that needs to wake up later. And people are after that. The Empire, that's like a classic, that is basically symbolically what Snow White stands for. Most like of those Sleeping Beauties ideas come from the sort of archetype of like the woman in the castle, like Fiona from Shrek, or Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel. All of these have like the same gestalt, and we're talking about genetic and memory, but all of those go to sleep. That's why Snow White, but Snow White's really important overall to Disney history because it's basically the first animated film.
Okay, let me give you this bone. If you're willing to go with me, let's go on a little journey. As you're saying, there's a genetic factor in her that went to sleep, then 100% it did when they closed down Necromancer. She's not asleep, but the genetic capability that's in her, that science that could be released through her blood, is asleep. It's in a coma state, right? It's completely dormant. The only chance for her to come back awake would be maybe as we're leading up to Rise of Skywalker.
The Empire, somebody in the Empire has to realize who she is and the importance to continue
use her blood.
Necromancer.
So her blood is the part that's asleep, not her.
Right.
She's just living her life.
You think though, if they want to market her good, they want her to be, even you could put her to sleep up until Rey's time for all I care, because that's what you want. You want a vivid character that is live, new, fresh, and slightly young. You don't want
the character. Old. I think the character's going to stay awake. Right? I'm saying figurative, from a figurative aspect.
I'll give it to you. I appreciate Santa's presence. Like you say, throw a bone, but I think you're putting something in my stocking that's not coal, and you're giving me a little leeway.
Right. I'm just saying, like the project, the part of that makes her so valuable to the Emperor, the knowledge of that, the information around that we talked about earlier, that part is asleep. That part is dormant. There's nobody carrying that knowledge active. In order for that part to come awake, that figurative part of her that's asleep, the knowledge that her blood carries what Palpatine needs, that part's asleep. Only down the road should they realize that, right? Come to a new understanding of it. Would that come back awake, being that she then returns to be another MacGuffin? Right? She's a MacGuffin for Palpatine. He needs her.
Right
now, that's asleep.
She's no longer a MacGuffin. Not very many people know about her. They're
Right.
worried about the Death Star, and the rebellion's worried about the Death Star. We know that we're in Cassian Andor series
Yeah.
time period somewhere.
So down the line, should
She become a MacGuffin. That's basically what but you just brings up a good point, because we got Emery. She knows, and she's still alive, and
yes,
nobody's after her. She's basically in she's with them in the retirement home, like the vet. We'll call it the VA for the Bad Batch, right? What's that island called? Right. Club Med at that
Pabu,
island. What's
Pabu.
Pabu? Yeah, Club
Yeah.
Pabu. They're chilling in retirement at Pabu.
Well, she went to Pantora, right, with
That's right.
Echo. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
we have to see what happens with Echo.
She could be important to Necromancer, because she could basically lead. She could be forced or tortured into continuing Necromancer in some way.
or
Plus, she has
revealing,
knowledge of Omega.
yeah, or her just revealing her knowledge, which would make Omega be a MacGuffin again. And there's
Yes.
the Sleeping Beauty, right? I'll give you that. And she's never physically like put in amber or carbonite, but figuratively, the power of her blood is now the MacGuffin that she has been is now dormant.
Okay, you give me that, but I still say that we get, because it's weird. When I first came up with this theory, remember, first episode, then you were kind enough to let me on your show, and we were questioned if it was going to happen, how long would we give it? And we said
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
3 now, because that's how long we've got. We know who Omega is. We know her skill set. We know where she's at. We know what she's capable of. We
So
know she has potential.
Question I have now, though, is that MacGuffin ever realized, right? Is it ever brought back awake? It is part of the story. We know that Dr. Pershing is still pursuing Kaminoan technology, but they don't seem to have perfected the ability to move midichlorians over to a new subject. They've tried, but it has detrimental effects on the subject. We see that in Mando season 2, right? When they get there, it is failing over and over again. And by the time we get to Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine's able to move his move his essence to a new being, but that being doesn't seem to have the capacity to maintain his midichlorian levels or survive with his midichlorians in him. It was more of a matter of necessity than the project was ready. So I don't think, at least by the Rise of Skywalker yet, that they ever recapture Omega and able to take her blood and move the project forward. Whether she becomes a MacGuffin again or not is the question. Or do they ever try to chase her again? Anybody ever realize that she could be of value to the Emperor? We don't know.
I say it's inevitable. I say they have to. I say the way that they have it set up now, if you want to continue down the way to Snoke, but it could take time. I really do truly believe, like, if you do put her to sleep, you could go anywhere in between The Force Awakens and, say, Mandoverse. Like, because what you could do is have one more series. I don't know how you do this. If you have, like, how much further development do you need with Omega? If, say, that you start a new series where you introduce Hera and Omega at the time or the end of the epilogue at some, like, Rogue Squadron or something like that, and at the end of it, you cut off Omega, like, you preserve her in some way, whether it be an amber or carbonite. That's the end of the series. And then you could have everybody, including Hera, Boba Fett, Mando, Grogu, everybody that's in the Mando universe could be using Omega as their new MacGuffin, because those people have motivations too. Like
It's
definitely
possible.
Boba Fett would. You could have Shand. You could have whatever remnants left of the clones, 80 years old or whatever. I don't know how old they would be,
Well,
but
that'd be really old. Yeah, that'd be real.
like
If
Seven
they
Dwarfs.
double age, right? If they double age, then if Omega is in her 40s, they would be in their 80s. This roughly. I mean, it's going to be off a little, but
Right.
maybe 70, right? So
But
you've got that whole
she
thing.
could, if you put her to sleep and they go to be the ones to wake her up, they would have big old white beards and she would be 20.
Right. Right. Or
And
mid
then
20s, maybe 30.
Bulba would be 40. Mando would be 40. Hera would be 40.
Well, that's the other
But
thing. Is you could just look at Tamora, right? Look at Boba Fett, and that's how old Omega would be.
well, Tamora Morrison is, did I pronounce that right? He's, if I
Yeah.
remember, like 60. See, he's too
I've
old
seen
for
Boba
Boba.
Fett. Right.
He's
Just look
too
at
old.
Boba
He's
Fett.
old enough to be right. If you put a beard on him and somehow did morphing to him, he could play the entire Bad Batch. He
Yeah,
could.
sure.
It would be amazing.
But I just as a mental note, like she would be the same age as Boba Fett whenever we see Boba Fett, right? Be it during the time of Return of the Jedi or be it Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett era, she would be the same age as him in the show, roughly. If she does not go into some sort of cryogenic pause. Right.
Right. Do you think the kids are still alive?
The kids are great. This is I wanted to talk to you. We almost talked about this before the show, and I said I want to wait. I want to.
Oh, okay, cool.
I want to wait. Will, I got a thought. There are things that I'm thinking. These kids during first of all, the any live action show we would have, they would be full adults. By the time The Mandalorian comes around, they're going to be 30 anyway, right? Mid 30s. They're going to be grown. So between now and the Mandoverse, we've got the original trilogy and the Return of the Jedi, an animated show that people, well, I don't know how many people, but a number of people would enjoy seeing, would be following Return of the Jedi with the OG characters. And Luke establishing his Jedi temple.
They could be in the school. I see. Is that where you're going?
That's where I'm going.
That's
100%.
That's a good place to go.
Yes. We've introduced the kids here. Guess what? Next show, post Return of the Jedi. These kids have aged up about a decade, maybe. They're in their mid-teens, late teens. And Luke is starting his academy with these same kids.
No, that's it. Because what bro? Bro. They could very well be okay. For again, the stasis theory. Omega goes in the stasis. These kids could be part of the people who go to get her out, right? Because they would feel a little bit of obligation. She got them out.
Yeah, if she goes into a cryogenic freeze of some sort, that could be the case.
No, bro, I didn't think about that. That's good. So it's quite possible these kids are of age and Force users and needing guidance at the time that in the Mandoverse, Luke establishes his school with the little spider tech motherfuckers, right? That's what we're saying.
That's even after, right?
Right. So, it could be even after, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a post Return of the Jedi. There's 10 years roughly between Return of the Jedi and Mandoverse, 9 years, something like that.
So when do you think is the next time we'll see Ventress? Do you think we'll see Ventress in animation? You could do a whole Ventress along the path animation next, right?
You could. I think we're going to see her in Ahsoka season 2 first. We
She'll be
put
old
her
though.
in
She'll
here
be
to
as old
establish.
as Rosario Dawson, basically, right?
Yep, yep, yep. And we know that Thrawn is back on Dathomir, or bringing the legacy or the original witches from Peridia to Dathomir. He just brought them there, and very well could meet Asajj on Dathomir, and then be like, "Wait, how is she alive?" Well, we saw that she's alive in the Bad Batch, so here we go. We still don't have the story of exactly how she, became unalived, but
I know.
in this case, she would be. We've established she's alive, so I think first there, chronologically, when would we see her next? Would maybe be in story, could be the next animated series, and
I
that's
don't see
really
why
right
they
now.
would not keep going with the same timeline directly off of Bad Batch. I
Yeah.
mean, they didn't do the same thing with Rebels.
Well, I would jump to immediately after Return of the Jedi.
Isn't there some Rebels time period, something going on, some sort of like action, live action or animation thing going for the time period of Rebels? I thought that I saw
No,
new. There's no news of like a Rebels.
no, no, nothing in that time era. In fact, a lot of people are speculating that we have seen in our lifetimes, or at least in the near future, any Clone Wars era or prequel era new show. They think that that era is done at Lucasfilm for the time being. If that's the case, and I don't have that as certainty at all. If that's the case, the next animated show, and maybe we'll find out tomorrow. Now, how cool would
I
that be?
think that's the perfect time, right? There's going to
I
be
would
surprise.
love to see it
What
tomorrow.
else do you expect in the weekend? Like,
Nothing. To be honest, I think we're going to
really?
get nothing. I think we had some Hasbro reveals today, and tomorrow we're going to get the Tales of the Empire. There's a whole bunch of merch releasing. They're doing the re-releases of the entire saga, and there's that clip from Acolyte. And right now they're throwing all the oxygen, all of the fuel, all of the kindling into the Acolyte because they need that to catch fire huge. So
Oh my God. This is where
that
we
is
start
where,
talking about the future of Disney. Bro, is it all just talk or is Disney looking rough?
well, that's a great question, Will. That is a very good question. Disney as a whole is is I think in relative terms to its competitors doing quite well on all fronts. If we look at parks and you compare them to other amusement parks, Six Flags or Cedar Fair, they just merged. Cedar Fair and Six Flags merged into a mega corporate amusement park industry. Or take the against Universal Studios. Universal may be doing a bit better than them from a parks perspective. Universal certainly has some momentum, but they've just talked about Disney filing. They have a bunch of land in Orlando that they just filed some plans on that they could be building another park, which would then give them some oxygen in that space. So Universal and Disney are the big boys. We've got the new Cedar Fair um, group with Six Flags competing. They're doing well. From a movie perspective, they've had some failures and they've had some hits. More failures, right? They've lost a lot of money on some very high profile projects. But compare that to other movie studios and what they have put uh, into theaters and how well they have performed. The movie industry as a whole has been struggling. I don't think Disney as a movie studio is doing significantly worse than anybody else. Maybe a bit worse, but not significantly. And then you get into the Disney Plus, right? The streaming platform. They've got um, multiple revenue streams there with Hulu, ESPN, and Disney. And now they're getting ready to open like Disney XD as a channel on Disney Plus, right? That kind of concept where you could pay for or have a lower tier that has commercials, just like you're watching Disney XD, right? It'd be, except it's a channel on Disney Plus. So they've been hemorrhaging money. Baymax is right. They've been hemorrhaging money, but the streaming platforms as a whole, they've not been significantly behind, and they're continuing to make progress. So I do not think that they are in the dire situation some folks paint them to be in, but they're certainly not super healthy. Right? They're certainly not like winning.
Well, somebody put it the other day that I thought it was very interesting. They said if you had bought Disney stock 5 years ago, you would be down now.
Yeah.
And that's not good because the 5-year forecast back then for Disney was extremely high because of Disney Plus. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's some sort of leakage coming out of Disney Plus. Now, whether that's just like bad budgets or bad quality shows. And also this, I mean, let's call the elephant out in the room. A lot of people talk about the whole like political war, the pushback
social
on
political agenda.
Yeah. I mean, they're not really listening to the fan group on that. I wonder, see, I heard you on your show earlier today. A whole bunch of people subscribed to your channel and became patrons or whatnot. And you said that yours had been going down, but I wonder if that's just because everybody's interest in Star Wars is going down.
Well, Star Wars Meg has vocalized that very clearly. She's struggling. But I've had a conversation with Jason Ward for Making Star Wars, and I don't think this is. I don't think I'm sharing anything he would not be okay with me sharing publicly. He's been in this business for a while. He's been in the Star Wars reporting game for a long time.
He's got credentials.
Yeah, he told me, Brian, this is absolutely to be expected with where Star Wars cycles go. When a movie comes out, it will balloon up something like 40 times the volume that it is now. 40x, right? Bigger than it is now. Between movies, especially between blockbuster movies, it's just this fan base kind of churning amongst itself. But the larger community, Star Wars fans around the world who grew up with Star Wars, but they don't watch the social media channels. They're not watching the animated shows, and they're not reading the books. That is the vast majority of Star Wars fans who will consume Star Wars content when it comes out at a theater. So it is crucial. It's critical that Star Wars gets a blockbuster movie that is well received by the general public.
Right. Well, I mean, look, man, even a badly received movie will benefit, I think, at this point.
Oh yeah. But the Mando Grogu movie makes total sense because Grogu is absolutely taken over pop culture. It still is a big seller across the board. So Grogu is still very popular in the zeitgeist, as they like to say. And if you get that movie to pop, you get that movie to come out and land well with the general public, they're going to look like heroes.
You know, all they have to do is go back to season 2 of Mando, man. Even if they just clean the same emotional strings up that they used in that one, and then just like transferred that momentum over, then it's possible that a lot of their problems, I mean, what can they do about Marvel? Marvel's having its own problems, but I don't feel that there's any, like, I don't agree with the panic people feel in Star Wars.
No,
I can
no,
understand that there's certain YouTube creators whose livelihood, I mean, you guys named your channel Star Wars.
yeah, 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 yeah. And you're right. There's drama sells, right? So drama draws attention. And so there are a lot of social media channels built around drama.
I
And
think that
that
they
will certainly,
destroy it though, because they're bad reviews. Like I have a big problem, and I'll be outspoken about this. I don't like the fact that a lot of like I don't think that certain Star Wars YouTubers know the damage that they're doing when they just write explicit headlines all the time.
no, I agree with you. Well, and I've mentioned this before, but a couple years ago, I was standing at the door of my church, right? I got my church t-shirt on. I have my t-shirt on. I'm standing in the door
Shout out to
greeting
Jesus.
folks. And this young man, still in high school, came up to me and we ended up talking about Star Wars. And he was saying how much he loves Star Wars, and he tried to watch some. He go into Twitter and watch some YouTube stuff, and there was so much hate and there was so much negativity that he just simply could not bear it, and he left. He's
It
like,
makes a big
I
it
can't
makes a
do that.
huge it's a deal. It's a deal breaker. I think that
And if
it kind
you've
of
got
sours people's feelings towards it,
Yeah,
and
if
it
you've got
sours like their
teenagers,
attempt to let even consider it or be open-minded about what you're actually seeing, or to
yeah,
cause, I think it caused a lot of bad reviews to come out of Bad Batch because people said they didn't know where it was going. When it's obvious, man. With the
yeah,
like
yeah.
what we were saying earlier, it's obvious they knew where they were going, where they were taking her.
I agree. But if you're running off teenagers who are interested in the franchise because of your negativity and what you're putting out into the world, then you are causing harm to the fandom. And I don't and at the same time, look, I understand when you need to express your frustrations, but it should be done in a constructive way that other people who are feeling the same frustrations feel like they can get that outlet, right? They can express themselves and say, I am frustrated. I am unhappy. I don't like what I'm seeing. I want to be able to express that. You should have every opportunity to do that. But at the same time, you need to be trying to be constructive in a way that pushes people forward and allows them to move forward rather than pushing people out and away and off, right?
I think that's a good place to end, man. I've had your attention. You've been on here for probably about an hour. I don't know what the
Yeah.
ticker says, but
The ticker
you
says an
know,
hour two, an hour 3 minutes. There we go.
listen, man, I always love, like, who gives for the people who are watching now and in the future, thank you. But I give a big shout out to Santa because, he still he's throwing me these bones, aka presents, all the time, because I think the theory is alive and well. And it doesn't really matter because we are already right about a whole bunch of stuff before the end of season 1 was gone. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That main husk, we have the proto armor. We know that she's important to whatever's going on in Necromancer in the future. All of those things we knew. You were right about a lot of all of the Tantus stuff. I mean, we've got a high record of being ahead of the game here. And,
Yeah.
and maybe we should think about just going back and rewatching Bad Batch, because there's no more that can be added. It's not like we can go back and we can rewatch all of this stuff with new eyes and figure out like things that we might have missed or not had given consideration to in the beginning. But
It's
for
a it's a
now,
good
thank you.
practice. Yeah, you're very welcome, Will. Thank you for inviting me to come and discuss. I love the way you think, and even if we can't see eye to eye on the
Going
on
to sleep.
Omega going into cryo in some sort of cryostasis, I will at least give you the bone that for now she's not a MacGuffin, and that has gone to sleep.
Right. Yep, that's true. I can't argue with that. We can. I mean, we're not being shields, guys. Thank you. Please subscribe, hit the bell. Notes on the show go as we will probably be doing, or I will be doing a show here at Meta Egg here again real soon. I invite Santa to come back later on when any other news or we get closer to some Star Wars that might give us some ideas on how it might link together for the future. But thank you guys for watching.
Lean in a little bit more into the Shire music that was at the end of season, at the end of the episode.
I think that that's it, though. I think that we've kind of, perhaps people have made fun of our connections to The Hobbit and the overall Filoni verse, whether it be Bad Batch. It's all over Grogu. And I feel like that's what this is leading to, is that Grogu Mando movie is going to be heavily inspired by the Fellowship of the Ring kind of idea. And I have an idea that, well, I mean, the MacGuffin very well might be Omega.
We shall see. I'll tell you what, Will, let's put a pin in it. And when we get closer, let's come back and let's talk about the Shire, Lord of the Rings, and its connection to the Mando Grogu movie.
Deal. Until then, guys, thank you for joining us. Stay meta.